What's up, beautiful people, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Crystal, this is Bond Book Reviews, and today we're going to be having a rude interruption from my washing machine. What's up, beautiful people? Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Crystal, this is Bond Book Reviews, and today we're going to be jumping into a reading wrap-up for the month of May. May was a pretty cruisy month for me. I didn't actually read as much as I usually do. I was in a little bit of a rut. I think I was kind of like slowing down, ready for Amazing Readathon in June, knowing very well that June was going to be a very hectic month. I did have some reading plans that I needed to complete though for May, knowing that I had video projects coming out in like June, early July, that I probably wasn't going to be able to fit into Amazing Readathon. So although I technically failed PickPong for the month of May, I did still read some books. So we're going to do this two ways. As you would have seen last month, the first half of this video is going to be my fun statistics, and the rest of the video will be my thoughts on books rating, going from my lowest rated up to my highest rated. Now, if you don't want to hear about all the fun statistics and don't care about statistics like me, and you're not a number person and a graph person, that's totally fine. Just skip straight to what I think about the books and you can hear that part of the video. But without further ado, let's jump into the fun statistics first and talk about what I read in the month of May. So in the month of May, I only read 5 books. I started an additional 3 books that I am currently in the middle of. So I technically, if I pushed through, could have done 8 books, but I didn't want to push through and not enjoy the books that I was really enjoying. So I've decided to just take them at my own pace. Whether I finish them in Amazing Readathon will be dependent upon whether they like work for a prompt that comes up. So we shall see. But I read 5 books and I'm currently in the middle of 3. So those 5 books equated to 753 pages and 35.75 hours of listening. 4 of them were traditionally published and 1 was a self-published book. I acquired 2 of them borrowed from my library, 1 from NetGalley and 2 were from KU or some other form of getting a free ebook. The mixture was 2 straight audiobooks and 3 were immersive reads where I listened to the audiobook and read along physically. 4 were adult books and 1 was a middle grade. And in terms of the genre breakdown, we had 1 contemporary, 1 crime, 1 fantasy, 1 historical fiction, and I obviously didn't put down the genre of the last one. 4 books. I read 5 books. Why do I have it as 5 books? Hold on, I've missed a book. Okay, I figured it out. So it was 2 fantasies, 1 crime, 1 contemporary, and 1 historical fiction. None of the other stats change. Everything else was right. I just missed a book in the genre ticky box thing in my tracker. So that breakdown of that was we had 2 2-star reads, 1 3.5-star read, 1 4-star, and 1 5-star. So overall, I had an average of 3.3 stars with 1 DNF. We will get to that shortly. So I'm going to go in this, I'm going to go from the lowest rated to the highest rated of what I actually read, and then I'll tell you a little bit about what I'm currently reading and how I'm thinking about it. So then when I bring it up in next month's wrap up, you'll understand kind of the trajectory of things. Hopefully it'll be next month's wrap up that I'm finishing them off in. So starting in our lowest of low, the DNF of the month is The Secret Messenger by Mandy Robotham. This is a historical fiction which follows a character who is kind of part of the traditional, like, obvious cookie cutter, I'm gonna help the rebellion situation during war. And that is why I did not like this. It read so cookie cutter. It was like the author, and I've read from her before and given her 5 stars. So this was really weird. It did not read like Mandy Robotham at all. But it took every single element that you imagine from a historical fiction that is built in the war, that has a resistance movement, and just like regurgitated it onto the page in the most boring way it possibly could have. And I don't know whether it was because I didn't like click with the character, and maybe that's why, because I know that a lot of the time when I have given a historical fiction 5 stars, it has been because I've absolutely adored the character. And that was not the case in this one. I found her bland and boring, and I was so uninterested. I did not care whether she was like successful in her mission or not. I gave it about 2.5 hours of the audiobook and then was like, I'm just not going to push through this. I'm not enjoying this. It was a NetGalley arc that I had, and then I happened to also get the audiobook. So I did the 2 hours of the audio and just was like, not for me. I'm not going to push through. I've decided and accepted that I need to DNF more. So I chose to DNF it. What I did read, I'd probably give 2 stars. So obviously I can't give an active, like full intended rating for this book, but from what I did read, I would give it 2 stars. Not because the writing was bad, it was just very bland and boring and I did not like the character. And that's just my honest opinion, and I am sorry because I have loved Mandy Robotham in the past and I have given her more than 2 stars. I've given her 5 stars and raved about her books. So this is not an author thing. I think this is just a me and this timing of this book thing, potentially. Then we move on to a very interesting buddy read that I did with a couple of girls from work. We decided to read A Soul to Keep. Now, I will put the cover on the screen and you will probably recognize this book here. This is by Opal Rain, and it is one of those books that I think divides the book talk community. There's some people that are obsessed with this book and think that it is the perfect like dark romance and monster romance and it's fantastic. I'm all for monster romance and I'm all for weird, but we know that I draw the line when it comes to tentacles. And this man's appendage had not 1, but 3 tentacles. And I could not get past that. And then I also couldn't get past the fact that he had like a skull face and this like really long, what I imagined to be snake-like tongue. It just was so unappealing. Every single time that you would get into the smart scenes, they would like remind you of the fact that he had a skull and this tongue. Like she almost talked about his glowing orb eyes changing and his skull like within the sex scene, and it just kind of like took me out of it a lot of the time. So I didn't like the smut. I didn't really believe in the romance of the main characters. It went from like 0 to I'm obsessed with you in like a really weird amount of time. And I also feel like the main character, like the woman, was not scared enough. Like, I'm all for like not judging people on their looks. Like I can understand and appreciate that. But if a monster like that fucking grabbed me and I had to marry him and he took me out of my village, I would be fucking kicking and screaming, not wandering in his arms being like, I'm safe and I'm all happy. No. Anyways, this was a very dividing book in the people that did the buddy read as well. There was 2 of us that gave this 2 stars and did not like it. And the other one absolutely loved it, gave it 5 stars and went to binge the entire series. So I don't know if it's your thing. I'm not going to judge you if it's your thing, but it was not mine. I gave it 2 stars. I did finish it because I wanted to finish it to be able to say I'd finished it so that I could like actively review this, because I didn't want to give up and give it 2 stars and a DNF when I felt like maybe it would get better. Maybe there would be a reason I start to believe in their love. Maybe I would care about the characters. That did not happen. And I didn't even like the smart, and there was no like saving grace for this book. I know that further books have like extra representation in terms of like queer rep and like disability rep and some other things in it, but I just personally don't find the race within the stories attractive at all. And so I just decided that I'm not going to continue the series and I'm going to give it 2 stars. And that is my rant review on that, and I'm sorry to anyone that did not expect me to start talking about snake tongues and tentacles. But if you're new here, hi, I'm Crystal. I read weird shit. But I also read the normal stuff too. So if you can read between the lines and hang around for long enough, I will talk about normal books too, I promise. So the next book that I read was a 3.5 star, and that was The Bandit Queens by Parini Shiroff, I believe. I will give you a bit more detail about my thoughts on this in an upcoming vlog, so stay tuned for that. But I gave it 3.5 stars, and I find that this is a me problem. I can see so many people giving this 5 stars and so many people being obsessed with this. But to me, I was obsessed with like the thriller element of it, but the literary fiction side of it was what bored me. So I found myself kind of jumping back and forth between being interested and not being interested. And I think that's why it sits in that like a medium 3.5, probably like 3.75 kind of things, because I was interested in the characters and I was kind of intrigued when like what was happening. There was a couple twists and turns that like didn't see coming that I thought were really cool. So like it was a good time. The Bandit Queens follows a group of women. Well, actually it follows one main woman. She has a husband who has disappeared overnight. They're in an Indian village and he has disappeared overnight, and everyone thinks that she murdered him. And that she is like this weird witch murderer person, and so everyone keeps their distance. And then out of the blue, one of the other Indian ladies comes up to her and says, hey, I want you to help me murder my husband the same way that you murdered yours. And then this weird Bollywood Desperate Housewives story ensues. I don't want to tell you too much because it gets down spoiler territory, but that's probably the only way I was describing this to people when I was talking about what I was reading, is I'm reading a Bollywood Desperate Housewives. But yeah, if you want to see more of my thoughts, there will be a vlog coming out soon that you can see that on. So the next in our moving up in the ranks is a 4-star book, and that was Elevator Pitch by Linwood Barkley. This was a 4-star read, and to describe this is, don't read this if you have a fear of elevators, because it will only make them worse. This follows a weird mystery that is going on in the town of, I think it's New York City. I can't remember exactly, but it's one of those like American big states. And somewhere in the city, people get on an elevator, they all push the button to go to their floor. The floor goes all the way up to the top, skips all their floors, and then just plummets to the bottom, and they all die. And then while this mystery is being solved, there's another murder that happens, and it happens to be somebody. I'm not going to tell you who because that gives things away. And then on the other side of town, another elevator decides to do a random malfunction and kill someone. And then it becomes this mass panic around the entire city because all the elevators get turned off. No one can use elevators. So people that are working in high-rise buildings, people that live in high-rise buildings are all having to use their stairs. People are dying with heart attacks, having to climb stairs. And there's this whole mystery going on around who is doing this and why. And there's like random like hints throughout the book, and jumps back and forth between like some different perspectives and some different storylines, which at the start was a little confusing, but once you actually start to get to know it, it's actually really, really good. And the way that it wrapped up and the reasoning behind what happened and why it happened is the only reason why this wasn't a 5-star book for me. I liked the way that it was done, but I didn't care about the characters enough that the way it was done affected me. And you'll hear more about that in this upcoming vlog as well. So I'm going to stop it there, but just know it was a 4-star and I had a really good time with it. Now we have our 5-star read of the month. And this is one that actually took me by surprise. I mean, it had been on my TBR since I think 2019 when How to Train Your Gavin was still reviewing kids books and raved about this. And I think I added it to my TBR ready for middle grade readathon or something along the lines, and then just never got to it. And that is The House with Chicken Legs by Sophie Anderson. And to describe this book is really, really weird and unique, again, without giving spoiler territory. But we have a main character who lives with a Baba Yaga. She wants nothing more than to be living with the living. She doesn't want to live with the dead anymore. She doesn't want to help them pass through into the gate. She wants to be a living person. And there's some complications behind why she can't do that. And then there's all these other things that happen, and then her grandmother goes missing, and it's just like this really cool middle grade story, coming of age, mystery, fantasy elements. If you're a fan of Howl's Moving Castle, then I highly recommend this one because it very, very much kind of is in the same vein and element of this house that like has a personality and moves everywhere and has really cool elements that like it brings to the story. It's like its character in itself. So yeah, I really enjoyed this. I sped through it. I had a really, really good time. Although our main character is 10, she definitely reads older than that, 100%. So yeah, it was a really good time. If you're looking for a middle grade, a quick one, which you might be in June, then this is definitely one to grab if you're on Team Fantasy and wanting to get some bonus points. Maybe it might work for a prompt. 3 books that I am currently in the middle of are all romances. Yes, they're all romances because that's just how things work. The first was recommended to me by my sister. It's called Berries and Greed by Lily Mayne. And the concept of this is there is a half devil. I don't even know how you would describe him. He is known as something, but I can never remember what the word is. But he's kind of like a half devil, and he is worshipped by these people. They have like an entire house where they all live, worshipped him because apparently he has this like amazing huge penis that's fantastic, and they know how to love women or whatever. So they all live in this house with the expectation that this guy or one like him, one of his race, is going to come to them and marry one of these human women. So they all like worship him and hope that one day one will show up to ask to marry them. This guy, he smokes weed, he has no job, he sits on in his house all day, bored, and he decides he wants a roommate. So he goes to this place not realizing that that's what it is, to try and find a roommate. They think he's there to find a bride, and there is one person there who actually doesn't want to be the bride of Demiurgus. I think it's called Demiurgus. I don't know. I'll put the name up here so you guys can hear what I'm trying to say. But he makes a pact with her and goes, okay, well, you want to get out into the real world. You don't want to be here in this weird cult. I don't want a wife. Why don't you come and be my roommate with me for a little bit? You can experience the real world. I can have some company. And obviously the rest is history. The banter between these two, I am in love with. It's currently sitting about a 3.5 stars because it has been a little bit slow paced to start with, but now that they're living together, I'm actually starting to it's really starting to grow on me. So far it's sitting at 3.5 stars. Next up is Wolf Gone Wild, and this is a werewolf and witch romance where the werewolf is unable to turn into a werewolf, so he goes to a witch who's sworn to never work with a werewolf to help him remove his hex. And he says, hey, let's hang out because every time I'm around you, you make my internal werewolf, my alpha werewolf, shut the fuck up so he stops bugging me. And so they obviously start, hanging out together. And then obviously the werewolf is obsessed with this woman, like his internal werewolf. And then so obviously I think romance is going to ensue. I don't know. It sounds like it's going to, and it sounds like it's going to be pretty smutty. So I'm excited for this one. You'll hear more about that in that same vlog that I've talked about with those other few. And then obviously, that's sitting at about a 3.5 star. And then the last one, which I am less than 50% in and will be getting finished in June because I needed to get it finished ready for the live show, which is tomorrow, but I won't be, is Heartless by Elsie Silver. This is sitting at a 5 star. I am absolutely obsessed with Daddy Cade. It is part of the readathon that we are doing for the Chestnut Springs read along, and I'm behind, but don't worry, I will catch up because I'm obsessed with Daddy Cade. I just have to read this physically, so it's kind of taking me like a little bit longer to get to, unfortunately. But all in all, I'm obsessed. It's 5 stars. So they're the 3 books that I'm currently in the middle of that'll probably be coming out to you in the next wrap up, but I figured I would just give you a little bit of an update as to where I'm sitting. There you have it. That is my wrap up for the month of May. I had a pretty slow one. Hopefully my June one's a bit more exciting for you. If you have made it this far, make sure you give this video a big thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already to join this crazy fam where I swear I do read normal books. I just had a crazy May, okay? And until next time, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you want to be a part of the conversation and you don't have anything to drop down below, you can drop a cowboy hat emoji down below for Daddy Cade. And until next time, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great weekend and happy reading. Bye.